let's talk about Bakelite. What is Bakelite? Bakelite is known as the first synthetic plastic that was created in the early 1900s. Initially, it was created more out of utilitarian purpose because it was known for its heat resistance, fire resistance. It was widely used in the early 1900s for electrical components and like telephones and radios and things like that. But the 1920s comes along and it is now used in costume jewelry. So it became very popular as early as the late 1920s into the 30s and the 40s. It was worn by people like Coco Chanel, who also made it available in her lines for purchase as well. And it was very easily tinted into different colors, and it was polished, highly polished, which also was perfect for carving as well. So you'll see a lot of intricate pieces that are deeply carved and fun colors, also named fun names. Pieces like, for example, this is called butterscotch. The bright red is known as cherry red. And so it was a highly sought after even in its time. So why is Bakelite so expensive? Well, because it is kind of one of those things that's considered a timeless piece, and it is increasingly scarce, obviously, because it was created for around 2 to 3 decades in its heyday, and it's also becoming increasingly popular. So Bakelite, the antique world, is affected just like everything else with supply and demand. So again, talking about value and cost, what you would expect to pay for a bracelet. Just like anything, I always recommend going to eBay and sifting through and finding sold items, and you can see what they're selling for on eBay. That's kind of, I think, the gold standard in determining what people are paying. But the heavier, the chunkier the bracelet, the wider, the more Bakelite, the more expensive it's going to be. And then items, like I said, that are more heavily carved. Here's a really good example. This is a heavily carved piece, and you'll see pieces carved even more so than this. Bracelets that have different colors, like stripes, and then especially those that have dots, like polka dots, very valuable and very sought after. All right, how to know if you have an authentic vintage piece of Bakelite. Now, there are other options out there. There's newer production. It's referred to as a Fakelite, and there's nothing wrong with that. But you should be an informed buyer. And if you think that you are paying for Bakelite, then you should know it's authentic. So there were also other plastics during that time, celluloid, but lucite is probably one of the most hard to differentiate between Bakelite and lucite, which is a resin. But there are several different ways you can test. You can use the 409 test, just formula 409, put it on a Q-tip, and you can just swab the inside of the bracelet. And it is, if it comes off with a yellow tint to it, that is the natural patina that Bakelite produces over the years. If it turns yellow, then you more than likely have a Bakelite piece. A similar test can be used with baking soda. So it's very easy, something that you can do at home. Oftentimes you'll see listings on eBay that people actually show a picture of the swab that they've tested. Also another test, which I don't think I would do, because if it's not Bakelite, you may ruin your bracelet. It's the heating test. So Bakelite, fun fact, is actually made with formaldehyde, so it has an odor when it's heated. So if you stick it in hot water for a little bit and you pull it out and you sniff it and you smell it and it smells like formaldehyde, also you have Bakelite. again, I don't really recommend that because if you don't have Bakelite, you don't want to ruin your bracelet. So there are ways to tell so you can be an informed buyer. And finally, why don't we use Bakelite in jewelry anymore? Well, by the 1940s, the US was entering World War II, which affected a lot of industries. Bakelite was just one of those. Jewelry production pretty much ceased during that time because Bakelite was used for the war effort, from anywhere from goggles, flying goggles, to buttons, to all sorts of things. And then by the end of World War II, again, the production, it was costly and could be kind of difficult to produce Bakelite. And so it kind of made way for products like Lucite, which was cheaper and easier to make, but still very similar in its properties to Bakelite.